Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're talking about Superman, the Man of Steel. But before we get into that, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, but also we love to hear from you guys. We've got an awesome community here, and that's thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So, all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to today's story takes place in Smallville, Kansas in 1911, when an escape pod from the planet Krypton strikes the field next to the roadway where two passing motorists, Jonathan and Martha Kent, were driving their Model T Ford. Inside the small craft, they find its precious burden, one of the few survivors of the planet Krypton. As the years went by and the child grew to maturity, he found himself possessed of amazing physical powers. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, the infant of Krypton grew up to become the Man of Steel, Superman. To best be in a position to use his amazing powers in a never ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way, Superman got a job working as a mild mannered reporter in 1938. Working alongside him at that great metropolitan newspaper was Lois Lane and a young Jimmy Olsen. In those early days, Superman fought all manner of strange and unusual foes, ranging from mechanical monsters to kaiju sized dinosaurs. In 1941, the United States enters into World War II, and President Roosevelt drafts all of America's mystery men into a new group called the All Star Squadron. During that time, Superman meets and befriends countless heroes, from the diminutive Atom to Zatara the magician. In 1945, the war finally ends, and Superman marries Lois Lane. Lex Luthor builds a machine designed to give him the same powers as Superman, but Lois finds it and uses it before Luthor can, becoming Superwoman. Lois and Clark have several children in the decades that follow, and they are all blessed with extreme longevity. Around the same time that Lois and Clark were married, Diana Prince, better known as Wonder Woman, married Steve Trevor. Their wedding was held on Paradise Island, which is surrounded by the mists of eternal youth. So both guests to the wedding, as well as the many visitors that Paradise Island had over the subsequent years, also found themselves no longer aging. In 1959, Kara Zor-El arrives on Earth. She goes by the moniker of Supergirl throughout the Silver Age. But in the Bronze Age, she changes her name to Power Girl. In the 1980s, a being known as the Anti Monitor threatened all of existence, and all the superheroes band together to fight him. In the end, though, Superman was exposed to gold kryptonite, losing his powers for what everyone thought would be forever. The oldest son of Lois and Clark was Clark Jr. He became the post crisis Superman in the 1980s, going toe to toe with Lex Luthor, whose brain was now in a young clone body, pretending to be the son of the original Lex Luthor. And a new Supergirl arrived on Earth from an alternate dimension around that time, too. The 1990s gave us all sorts of strange developments, from the electric blue Superman to the rise of strange beings known as the Millennium Giants, who actually restored the powers of the original Clark Sr. In the early 2000s, a new threat arose in the form of Imperiex, and the entire universe seemed to join together to fight him. And once more, the heroes were triumphant. In the late 2000s, though, the villain known as Necron brought about an army of Black Lanterns, and countless heroes were slain. Jimmy Olsen had been many superheroes over the years. He'd gone by names like Flamebird, Elastic Lad, and Turtle Boy, and he too died fighting the good fight, only to be resurrected years later. But Jimmy found that his widow, Lucy Lane Olsen, had remarried and moved on without him. Feeling heartbroken and desperate, Jimmy tried to use the miracle machine in the Fortress of Solitude, but things went wrong. The miracle machine can only be safely operated by someone who has clarity of thought, and Jimmy was a wreck. So he accidentally caused a soft reboot of sorts. Which brings us to the main plot of today's tale, which takes place in the year 2025 in the bustling offices of the Daily Planet in the great city of Metropolis. Jimmy Olsen has a job interview with the current editor-in-chief, Ron Troop. Ron sits at the old desk of Perry White with a framed photo of Perry on the wall behind him, showing the time that Perry got to meet President Roosevelt. With Jimmy's years of experience, Ron is quick to hire him as a photographer. Despite the fact that he got the job, though, Jimmy is still upset about Lucy. So Clark sees this and takes him aside. For decades, they were best friends. So Clark congratulates Jimmy on getting the job, but Jimmy is still down. Clark suggests they celebrate, so Jimmy reluctantly allows Clark to take him out after work, and they go to a 1950s style retro diner where Clark gets a root beer float, which is his favorite, and Jimmy gets a banana split, but he barely touches it. After a while, Jimmy starts to vent, and Clark tries to be a good friend by simply listening and letting Jimmy get it off of his chest. Sadly, this is interrupted when something bursts through the front window, spraying glass into the restaurant at super speed. Customers try to avert their eyes and they scream as Clark is knocked through the floor into the subway tunnel below and even knocked through that level into the Metropolis sewer system by Bizarro. Clark's clothing is torn up, revealing the Superman costume underneath. He asks what Bizarro is thinking, pulling a stunt like this. "What am I not thinking?" the villain replies. And Superman looks confused. That doesn't sound like something Bizarro would say. No backwards or opposite phrasing. But before Superman can process what he's hearing, Bizarro tears into him at super speed, hitting him thousands of times per second, doing tons of damage. Their battle shaking the buildings above, cracking glass, and setting off car alarms. So Clark grabs Bizarro and flies him out of the sewer to where a pipe pours out into the city dump. But it's Bizarro's turn now, so he fires a blast of atomic level heat vision, making a called shot to Superman's eyes. Superman kicks Bizarro high into the air like a football, then flies after him and unleashes a flurry of blows, each one setting off a shockwave high over the city. Jimmy unburies himself from the debris and could snap some photos, but he knows he needs to unbury other innocent bystanders first. So he gets to work digging people out of the diner's wreckage. Bizarro pushes Superman into the Atlantic Ocean, slamming him into the seafloor. As he chokes him, Superman gets a good look at Bizarro's face, and finally he sees it, the scar at his hairline. Finally, Superman figures it out, why this particular Bizarro is so aggressive, why he speaks such fluent English. He is the Ultra Humanite. Superman tries to say something about how this elderly mad scientist lobotomized a poor Bizarro, but his words just bubble out of him in the dark depths of the ocean. So Superman grabs the top of Bizarro's head and begins to pull. The Ultra Humanite knows the cranial wounds are fresh, and even he isn't sure if this Bizarro body has had enough sunlight to keep Superman from putting his brain into a jar. So he backpedals, and Superman pushes the attack. When Bizarro spends a turn trying to get away, that's an extra turn that Superman uses to attack, which gives him the upper hand now. The two trade a few more punches until finally the Ultra Humanite is knocked out. Superman drags him to a beach, and now the Man of Steel must choose between removing the Ultra Humanite's brain and saving the people at the diner. So Superman hurries to the diner. On the way, he uses his communicator to have the robots at the Fortress of Solitude retrieve the Ultra Humanite. He tells them to put the brain in its jar safely and place the Bizarro body in stasis in the hopes that they can find its original brain and put it back too. As the Superman robots head out, the Man of Steel himself arrives at the diner and finds Jimmy Olsen doing what he can to save people. But Jimmy can't lift heavy girders, etc., so Superman does. Superman rushes the wounded safely to the hospital so they can receive the medical attention they need. And once all of that is done, Superman hurries to the Fortress of Solitude, where the Superman robots have removed the Ultra Humanite's brain, an operation they have performed many times through the decades. But now the brain is safely in a jar, and the body of this Bizarro Superman clone is hooked up to a life support machine that does what the brain was doing, keeping the body alive. One of the younger Superman robots says something about using the duplicator ray to simply make a new Bizarro to replace this one. And Superman is quick to correct the young robot, saying that while, yes, there is an entire planet out there full of these Bizarro duplicates, this one had been shaped by his unique life experiences. He was an individual with all the rights that any living being has, and he didn't deserve this. And he's neither disposable nor is he replaceable. Superman places his hand on the robot's shoulder and gives him a little smile, letting him know that it's all right and that he'll learn in time. But for right now, Superman must figure out where the Ultra Humanite's headquarters was and who his assistant is, because the Ultra Humanite can't perform surgery on himself. They always travel in pairs. And when the Ultra Humanite is involved, that other person's brain could be in any body anywhere in the world. So tracking it down will be hard, even for Superman. And that seems like a pretty good place to stop for this one. We enjoyed playing it. We hope that you enjoyed hearing about it. If so, as always, we would love it if you took a brief moment of your time to smash that like button, subscribe, and leave us a comment. And from all of us here at the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.